Yeah, so this call I wanted to do a few things. One, give just a brief status update where we're at with Testnet, how things are going. I did want to address the node operator dilemma. I know there's a lot of you who have submitted requests to get coins or L1 tokens to run your node, so I'm going to talk briefly about that. Then we're going to go into this week's topic, which is cross-chain transfers. Another fairly technical one that we touched on briefly, I think, last time, but we're going to actually have some walkthroughs this time. And then if we have some time, we'll do a little bit of Q&A, but we'll see where we're at. I think we're going to move pretty quickly this week. And hopefully in the following weeks, we can get away from the super in-depth technical stuff and do some funner demos and stuff around the Unity SDK, stuff like that. But baby steps first. So let's start with the status update. I mean, as you guys have probably seen, we probably have a lot of new faces in this call. Our community's grown immensely. I think we're almost at 18,000 if I didn't read it incorrectly, which is just amazing. So I want to say welcome to everyone who's new and thank you to everyone who's here. We love the feedback and the support we've been getting from you guys. So I did want to mention, I think, speaking of feedback and support, a lot of you guys have given us some really good suggestions on the UX and UI, as well as reported a couple of bugs, one of them being that you can't see your stake tokens in the Explorer. This is something we have been able to recreate. We're working on it, and we'll actually see it today. I'll recreate it for you guys just so you know what to look out for. The good news is you can't see them, so this is mostly a UI UX issue, and we will get it fixed. But your coins will be staked even if you can't see them. And this is something, hopefully, once we get a good Explorer up and running, you'll be able to verify this stuff yourself. And actually, I made a typo. That's supposed to say wallet, not Explorer. L1 tokens are stuck when trying to transfer between chains. So this is the topic for this week, and I'll show you what to do if this happens. This is kind of something that's by design in the Avalanche architecture. They have specific buttons put in place in the wallet UI that help you if you're trying to move your coins from the C chain to the P chain and they get stuck. They have some buttons that help you recover them. Finally, there were tons and tons of really good UI UX suggestions and complaints. We are painfully aware of them, but there were some good new ones that I hadn't seen yet. So we are compiling all those, and we're going to turn them into action plans and throw them into our sprints once we get to the point where we're really trying to clean up the wallet UI and UX. So keep those suggestions coming, and as always, please report any bugs that you find. It's really helpful for us at this stage. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing as the dev team. We're obviously working on that interim Explorer for the C chain. This is something that's really going to be critical, specifically for anyone who wants to start developing or using any of the smart contracts on our platform. We are going to get something up interim. It's not going to be the prettiest Explorer initially. We just want something that works and is functional. What we would prefer, rather than reinventing the wheel on this, is to partner one of the existing Explorers out there to add our chain to their platform. Eventually, longer term, I'd love to do a really streamlined simple Explorer that's kind of really focused towards non-blockchain natives. That really just breaks things down at a very basic level. But like I said before, baby steps. Let's get the technical stuff up and working first, and then we'll make it very approachable and usable for people new to the space. Luckily, these Explorers are fairly easy to understand once you dig into them. And once we get ours up and running, of course, we'll do a walkthrough of them so that you guys can get familiar and comfortable with them as well. And you can give some of those suggestions and feedbacks for how we can improve these moving forward. But yeah, once we have that live Explorer, we will release the documentation on using the C chain. Ethereum virtual machine so that you can start developing smart contracts, you can mint NFTs, and do anything within the EVM environment that your heart desires. But we really do need that Explorer up and running before we can release it. So those are the two things that are on our critical roadmap for this development sprint. The other exciting thing is we are making good progress on the Unity SDK, which will, of course, plug into that C chain initially. It may plug into the P and X chains eventually, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. There's maybe it's a less compelling experience, I think, touching into like the X chain specific functionality and the P chain specific functionality from the Unity SDK. I'll give you guys a refresher on what those chains are if you missed the last call or if you haven't dug into the platform yet in the next few slides. But first, I wanted to get the node operators out of the way. We've got an insane amount of requests for people to run nodes, which we love, we appreciate. We're excited to have you guys come on board. There are a few things I want to get from you guys, at least at this stage. And I'm going to do that by sending a Google form out to everyone who expressed interest. It's not too late to express interest. This will be a rolling thing. So you can jump in whenever you're comfortable. But in this form, I want to get a little bit of information about you as a node operator. This doesn't have to be like, and actually, like, I prefer if it's not personally identifiable information. I don't want to know, like, your name, your address, your phone number, nothing like that. A nickname is fine. Just a overall background, like who you are, why do you want to run a node? Just real background information, just so I can get a sense for who our node community is and where they come from. And then I would like to know how you're going to run your node. Are you going to run it in the cloud? Like, are you going to spin something up on AWS? Are you going to run it on a server in your bedroom? Are you going to, do you have a server farm yourself? Like, do you do this professionally? So I just want to know a little bit about how you're going to run your node. And any experience you have. Are you running nodes on any other blockchains? How long have you been running nodes? And then how can we contact you? This ideally, this would be an email address. We are also setting up, or it may already be set up, a node channel in the Discord. So we will reach out to everyone through that node channel, but if there's updates to the network and we want everyone to push new binaries, for example, we'd prefer to have some way to get in touch with you to get you the information on how to do that upgrade. So once you guys fill out that form and send it in, we'll be doing distributions every Monday. So I'll just briefly go over it, make sure you look like a real person, and we will, again, do those distributions every Monday. So I'll try to do some of this stuff over the weekends, but we did have a lot of requests. So if I don't get to everyone this coming weekend, I may do like one extra distribution, maybe at the end of this week as a one-time thing, just so we can get like the backlog cleared out. But generally speaking, you can expect, if you submit your form somewhere between, during the week, we'll get it to you by that next Monday. And I think we're going to have like a dedicated session on node operators in a few weeks. All right, so let's talk about cross-chain transfers and what they are and why. Why did we choose an architecture with 3 different chains? It sounds a bit like a nightmare. It is a bit of a nightmare, but there are good reasons for it. So one is that each of these chains has its own domain and its own use cases. So we covered this briefly last week, but the P chain is used kind of for managing the platform. So it's managing all the nodes in the platform. It's managing the staking, the subnets that are created, stuff like that. So it's kind of doing the bookkeeping at the top layer. The exchange chain is really dedicated to efficient asset transfers, and that's it. You're not supposed to be able to do like really intense computation on this chain. It's supposed to be really streamlined and optimized for efficient asset transfers. And then on the C chain, this is where you'll basically have all your EVM functionality. If you're from the blockchain space and you're familiar with Ethereum and smart contracts, this is basically an Ethereum running on our platform. So this allows you to deploy smart contracts, interact with them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're able to also spin out your own blockchains as a subnet, which will also be EVM compatible. That'll be a more advanced session we'll do quite a few weeks from now, but that's where things start getting really interesting as well. So that's what each of these three chains is really dedicated and used for. My guess is the majority of people here will be focusing primarily on the P and the C chain. The P chain, if you're interested in staking, and I'll talk a little bit about what staking is and why that's important. And then the C chain, if you're trying to collect NFTs, mint NFTs, develop the decentralized apps. If you're using our Unity SDK, that's generally all going to be touching the C chain. So I would guess 90% of everyone's use cases are going to be in the C chain, actually. So when you separate this functionality up between these chains like this, it actually allows you to optimize the consensus algorithm for each of the chains, and it also helps with resource management. So the X chain actually has a different consensus mechanism than, say, the C chain. For those of you who aren't familiar, consensus mechanism is basically it's the kind of distributed algorithm that all of the nodes are using to come to an agreement on the state of that chain. So the X chain uses what's known as a DAG, whereas the C chain uses like a more linear like blockchain. And that's good because DAGs are very efficient, but they have different properties than linear blockchains that make them less kind of optimized for EVM type stuff, but very, very good for simple asset swaps. So that's why they've done this separation. Is it allows each of these chains to be very efficient, very performant, and in some ways, like it's good to modularize some of this functionality between the chains. So like if you never want to stake and you don't want to do like very simple asset transfers, all you want to do is play around in the EVM space, you'll have dedicated computation resources for your use case. You're not getting bogged down with the people doing asset transfers or the people doing staking or running nodes and stuff like that. So there's good reasons for it. Unfortunately, it does make for a confusing user experience, and that's going to be one of the things that we as a project and as a team are going to be like really focused on addressing and improving. So today's walkthrough, I'm going to start by going over the transfer of L1 across chains with this in mind. So we'll actually do a screen share in the wallet. I'll show you what to do if your L1 gets stuck during that transfer. And what's not here, and which we will add, is staking in the L1 web wallet. And without further ado, let me move over to a wallet. All right. So if you guys missed the last session, what I just did there was log into my wallet. And if you haven't done that already, make sure you set up your wallets, or I would highly suggest you set up your wallets to do that. And you can do that by going into the wallet, going to manage keys, and there'll be a section here for saving this key as like a profile, and you'll see it down here. This one's named demo. And what it basically allows you to do is get into your wallet using a simple password. And now that we're here, this one's in your wallet. So I guess we're actually going to do a demo on getting coins first. So for those of you, again, who weren't here last time, if you set up your wallet and you want to get some test coins, we have something called the faucet, which you can see on the Testnet hub here. And this faucet allows you to drip or request 2 L1 tokens per drip. And I think we can do 5 requests every 24 hours. So you can get up to 10 L1 coins every 24 hours by using the faucet. And this can all be found on testnet.lamina1.network. So I'm going to use it with my C chain, which you'll see the 3 chains we talked about up here in the top right. You have the X chain, the P chain, the C chain. The C chain is the only one that works with the faucet at the moment. So we're going to pull our C chain address, paste it in here, request 2L1, and transaction was successful. And I'm actually going to do this a few more times just so we have enough to play with here. And eventually, it's going to tell me no more. Yeah, that's all I get today. All right, so now you'll see I did 5 drips, so I have 10L1. And when you look at this wallet, you'll see that my 10L1, again, are stuck in the C chain. So if I wanted to stake, for example, I would need to move some of these coins into the P chain because the P chain is the blockchain that's responsible for staking in our platform. If I wanted to, say, transfer these to someone with the smallest amount of fee possible, then I might move them to the X chain. So if I'm primarily using L1 tokens to do payments, then I might keep all of my L1 tokens on the X chain. So it depends on what you're going to be using your assets for, kind of where you want to park your coins. Luckily, it is fairly easy to move to a different chain. So even if you're not sure how you're going to be using them yet, you can easily move them. So because we're going to be doing staking later today or later in this call, we're going to do a C to P transfer. So when we go to the cross-chain tab over here, you'll see, we're doing a transfer between one of these 3 or 2 of these 3 chains. You select your source chain. All of ours are in the C chain, so we're going to use the C chain. We're going to do staking, so we're going to choose the P chain as our destination. It'll give you your balance just to make sure you've got enough coins to actually do a transfer. And then you enter the amount that you want to transfer. So we're going to do 6 for now. Then you'll find some fees down here. Unfortunately, in the blockchain space, nothing's free. All of these transfers do cost a little bit of L1 token. Luckily, our fees are very, very low in the grand scheme of things compared to other chains. So you can see that you're actually going to pay 2 fees here, one on each chain, but they're all quite low. So we're going to go ahead and confirm that transfer. And you'll see this will take place in 2 transactions. There's an export transaction that takes place on the C chain, and then there's an import transaction that takes place on the P chain. Now, one thing I think some people had trouble with was sometimes these transfers get stuck. Like maybe an export will be successful, but the P chain, for whatever reason, isn't successful. If that happens, if you go to the Advanced tab here, you can see that there's buttons specifically to recover any funds that are stuck in a cross-chain transfer. So we were doing a C to P transfer. So, if that had gotten stuck, we would just say import P from C. I don't think it'll do anything, right? Because there's nothing to import. But because ours was successful, you'll now see that we have 6L1 on the P chain. So that's basically it for cross-chain transfers. You'll see that we lost just a tiny amount of L1 in fees, but it's basically that simple. I think this is like an okay user experience for people who are very familiar with the blockchain space. I do recognize that it's fairly painful for those who are not. And so what we'd like to do eventually is hide a lot of this complexity really behind streamlined UI. So, if you wanted to stake, you'd have the platform in a streamlined user mode, basically do a lot of this work behind the scenes for you. So you don't have to worry about where your coins are at, and doing all this work. But for now, this is the UX we have, and hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, so let's go into staking. First, I want to talk a little bit about staking, what staking is, because people who aren't familiar with the space, you may have heard of it, you may have heard of proof of stake. So just wanted to give you some context about what it is, because it's actually critical to the platform. This isn't just like a way for you to make money. It is a way for you to make money, or L1 tokens, but it's more significantly, it's a way for you to participate in the actual operation of the platform. So our platform is based on what's called a proof of stake algorithm. And what that means is all of the nodes that are operating the network, they have like a voting power or a voting weight when they operate in their consensus mechanism. So that it kind of like determines, I'm sorry, and that weight is determined by how many coins are staked on them. So I'm trying to think of an analogy here, but it's kind of like, it's basically like voting, but you get more votes. The more stake you have, the more power your vote holds, I should say. So when you stake in this network and you select which nodes you want to delegate on, that actually helps contribute to like the robustness and the security of the network, because the more money or L1 tokens that are tied up in the consensus algorithm and this mechanism, the more secure and the more resilient the network is to malicious behavior by any of the nodes. So that's like at a high level, that's basically what we're doing here, is we're kind of like putting our money where our mouth is and saying like, I'm going to dedicate some of my L1 tokens, stake them in the network, and by doing so, I'm helping kind of maintain that network. And I'm trying to keep this at a very high level so that it's kind of approachable for everyone, and we can dig into it a little bit more. There's a ton of resources online to learn about proof of stake, and we use what's called delegated proof of stake, and we'll talk about that distinction right now, because for the majority of you who are not going to run nodes, that's how you're going to stake your coins. So again, if you want to start staking, you'll need to make sure you have some coins on the P chain, and you'll go to the Earn tab. And there's two ways to stake. If you're running a node, then you can choose to make that node an active validator in the network. And what that means is, when you start up a node and it syncs with the network, it's not actually automatically participating in consensus. Well, it sort of is participating in consensus, but it's not making any decisions because it doesn't have any of that voting weight that I just talked about attached to it. So if you do want to like be an active node participating in consensus and producing blocks, then you need to become a validator and you need to stake tokens on that node. And right now that minimum is currently set to 2000 L1. And we don't have 2000 tokens right now. So we're not going to go through this process today. Again, we're going to have a more advanced session for node operators. Maybe we can do that next week. But for now, we're going to focus on delegators. This is something anyone can do. I think you only need a single L1 to do it. I think that's the minimum. So as long as you have one L1 on the P chain, then you'll be able to see this button and click on it. But what delegate does, and this is a distinction between classic proof of stake and what's called delegated proof of stake. In classic proof of stake, the only way you could stake and kind of participate in the economics of the network was to actually be a node. In delegated proof of stake, you don't actually have to run the node. You can actually just vote on other people's nodes. So if you, and we'll click on here for a second, and we can see that there's actually quite a few nodes up and running at the moment. When you come to the network and you want to stake, you can actually take a look at these nodes, decide which of them and there's a couple ways to decide which nodes you want to stake on, and I'll cover that in a sec. But when you come here, you can select, any number of these nodes to support. And as a result of staking on them, you'll start earning rewards as long as they're earning rewards. One sec. So what does that mean? I had mentioned that all of these nodes, these are the nodes right here that are active validators. All of these nodes are currently processing or performing consensus on the Lamina1 testnet. And as a reward for doing it, as an incentive, because the Web3 space is all about incentivizing this behavior, as a reward, they periodically get paid additional L1 tokens based on based on a few things. One of them is, how many L1 tokens do you have staked? Another parameter is your uptime or your performance. And then a third parameter is your fee. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But it's important to note, like, when you're selecting which of these nodes to support or to delegate, you definitely want to support nodes that have good uptime. And we'll have some tools here in the near future, which will give you some breakdowns on how these nodes are operating, how often they're online, and what their performance is. So that'll be something you'll want to take into consideration when choosing your node. Something that's just as important, maybe even more important, is what the stake on that node already looks like. So you can think of this kind of like a pool of tokens, and you can throw your own tokens into that pool, but the bigger the pool, the more the reward is shared. So if we say, like, maybe after a week, this node is going to earn 1,000 L1 tokens. Those tokens are then split between everyone who has put tokens into this pool. So as you can see, there's 1 million tokens in this pool. So if you stake 1,000 tokens, or let's say 10,000 tokens into this validator, you're only going to get 1% of the rewards, roughly, not including the fee. And we'll talk about that fee separately. But from the distribution to this validator pool, you're going to get a very small amount. But if you come down here, this node only has 2,000 tokens staked on it. So this is a much smaller pool. So if you stake that same 10,000 10,000 L1 tokens, you're going to get the majority of the reward that this node generates. So this is something you'll want to take into account when you choose which ones you want to stake on, because if you stake your coins on nodes that are what we call oversubscribed, they already have a lot of tokens staked on them, then you don't stand to earn as many coins. Whereas ones that have lower stakes, there's a much bigger opportunity to earn coins. But it's not the only parameter. You also have to pay attention to the fee. So what is this fee that you see over here? This fee is the percentage of the reward that the node takes as like their fee for operating the node. And that basically means, in the situation where we said this node's going to generate 1,000 L1 tokens in a week, this node's going to take 6.25% of that off the top, and then the rest get distributed to everyone who's staked on the node. And so you'll see, like, there are going to be nodes that have 100% fee. And if you stake on these nodes, you are not going to earn any coins. They're going to be taking the entire reward. And similarly, someone with 50% is going to take half of the reward, and then it's going to distribute the rest to everyone else. So this is something you want to keep in mind. If you really believe in a node, and the majority of the time, these nodes are not looking for community members. The ones that have 100% fee, they're not really looking for community members to stake on them. These could be people who are running nodes as professionally, so they have enough coins to stake on themselves. They might be people who are running nodes for a specific project that they're building. So there are a number of reasons why people set up 100% fee nodes. But just keep in mind, you're welcome to stake on them, but you won't earn any rewards. So those are the two things you want to consider when you're staking, amongst others, including their uptime. but it's largely making sure that you're considering, how big is the pool already that I'm about to step into, and then what type of fee are these nodes taking right off the top. So this one looks by far to be the most lucrative one. So I'm going to select this one for our example today. You'll see that it breaks down some of this information again, just so you can look at it in a little bit more detail. You'll see that there's a 2% fee, which is pretty low actually. You'll see that it'll give you links, and these need to be removed for now. But we will have a similar link to our own tool that gives you performance information for each of these nodes. It'll tell you how many people are already delegating on this node. So there's 140 wallets that are currently staking on this node. You can see that what the active stake is. So this node is staking 2,507, and it has 7,500 available to stake. And you can also see when this node will stop staking. So this is important because when you stake, if you're trying to stake for a very long time, and we'll go, I think maybe in the node validator walkthrough, we'll go a little bit deeper into what type of rewards you can look at, and kind of some of the more advanced functionality in staking. But generally speaking, the longer you stake, the higher the potential reward. But you can obviously only stake on a node up to the date that that node goes offline. So this node has dedicated to being online until April 30th, 2023. Some nodes will decide to, be online for an entire year. This one is only going to be online for 3 months. So keep that in mind as well. You won't be able to stake past its end date. Here's where you decide how long you want your tokens to be locked up and staked on this node. So we're going to do the minimum at the moment, which is February 10th. That's just the time. And we're going to stake our maximum. We have 601 tokens here. And this will give you a breakdown of your estimated reward. It's a very short staking period, and we're not staking that many tokens. So we're only going to get about 0.081 L1. Obviously, like I said, usually when these are staked higher for longer periods of time, then these rewards start looking higher. And then obviously the amount you can earn is proportional to the amount you stake. So generally speaking, if you stake more for longer periods of time on good performing nodes, you'll earn more. And then luckily there is no current fee associated with staking, so you can do it to your heart's extent freely. And one thing over here that is more of an advanced feature, but when you're done staking and you get your reward, that reward goes to the same wallet that you use to do the staking. So at the end of this, we'll get approximately 6.08 L1 back. If you wanted to, you could say that 0.08 reward could go to a separate wallet. And the reason you might do that is a couple-fold, but I think just for simplicity's sake, I would say most people will probably just want to keep this as is, the default mechanism, which is to just put those reward tokens directly into the same staking wallet. So I press confirm, and this will just give you a breakdown of the options you've chosen so that you can be sure that you're doing or that it's about to execute what you're expecting. So we can see that it's 6L1. It does give you a start date. So these delegations do not take place immediately. It takes a little bit of time for them to become active on the chain. And this actually ties into the UI UX issue that we will see in just a moment. It looks like it has my end date correct. And this is, I believe, my P Lamina1 AJ. Yep, so this is the same wallet that I'm using to delegate. So all these options look correct. This is something I recommend everyone do. Anytime you're using Web3 wallets, there was just another, famous example in the news of someone who, clicked the wrong button on a wallet and lost a lot of money. And unfortunately, that's the state of UI UX in the Web3 space right now. You do need to make sure you double check anytime you do a transaction, whether it's staking, whether it's transferring your coins, whatever it is, make sure that number one, you're interacting with an official wallet. Someone hasn't given you a fake wallet somehow. Number two, you have the address correct. Double check the address. Number three, make sure the values are correct. Double, triple check. It's really important. Because if you make a mistake, unfortunately, there's no getting it back. All right, so we've submitted this. We'll get a message, status committed. We click back to earn, and we'll come back to this page. Now, you'll see up here that it now shows that we have 6L1 staking, which is great, and that will be staking until February 10th. Eventually, once those become active, those delegations become active, you can come to view rewards and you can see the status of them. But as the message said, it takes a little bit of time for them to become active. So if we came back here, I don't know if it'll happen in 5 minutes, but it'll certainly happen within 30 minutes or so. You'll start seeing these. And there's also a shortcut button here for you to do a transfer. So if your coins are stuck on one of the other chains, they give you a little shortcut button here. But that's basically it. So at the end of the staking period, you'll come back, you'll have your rewards. You can decide to delegate again, or you can take your coins and do something else with them. But that's the basics of delegating. You can delegate on as many different nodes as you want. You can delegate as many times as you have coins for. So there's no limits. I just chose to use all my coins on a single validator. So as you can see, I don't have any coins on the P chain, and it won't let me delegate another one. But yeah, so this is a great way to participate in the platform, especially early on when there's not a whole lot more to do at the moment, or to interact with. This is a great way to start playing around with understanding the economics of the platform and some of the more advanced functionalities of it. If we want to recreate the bug, everyone's seeing up here, if you do leave this wallet and come back, which we'll do real quick. Yeah, see, it says I have no coins staking. So this isn't true. Your coins are definitely still staking, but there's a local state that's being stored here in the wallet, and it's not being updated by what's on the blockchain. I think largely because what's on the blockchain isn't active yet. So we're chasing that bug down. We'll fix it. But if you do experience it, number one, this probably will eventually switch over just by itself. I think it'll automatically detect it on chain eventually. But we will patch this so that it doesn't take so long to reflect correctly. But that's it. That's basic cross-chain transfers and staking. And we'll do validation on another date once we have some people with some of those coins where they get a chance to submit that form and get some coins in hand and set up their nodes. Because in order to do this stage, you actually have to have your node already up and running and synced. So we'll give everyone an opportunity to do that before we go through this phase of staking. But again, this is a more kind of advanced functionality for everyone. You don't have to stake. Nobody's obligated to stake. But again, it's a good way to participate in the network. It does support the network. You get coins in return. So yeah, I recommend everyone try it at least at this early stage. I think that's it for the walkthrough. Do we have time for a couple of Q&As, Casey?
Yeah, I think so. I've been answering some questions mostly around how do I apply for a job and how to, like translation services in the chat. But yeah, if anyone has any specific sort of testnet related questions, feel free to drop them in the chat now. Haven't really received much on my end so far.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll do some stuff that's like maybe a little more exciting and less technical in the future. But
So Alex asks, is there a limit on the number of active validators?
so currently, no. Currently, we can have as many validators. That's kind of one of the beauties of Avalanche is, some of their chains can support quite a lot of validators. So currently, there's no limit. We're going to look. We're actually going to be stress testing this for the network performs with a lot of validators, and we'll revisit that in the future. But no, there's no limit.
Well, I think, oh, wait. Are we able to add a moniker to the node ID? Alex follows up with.
That is a really good question. Let me look into that. It's something you generally are able to do, and something we want to support. So yeah, I think it's something that's supported by the core Avalanche functionality. But I'll double check and put that into the documentation.
All right, any more questions, everyone? Anyone? Otherwise, we'll probably pop off. And again, we're going to be doing these every week on Friday. Sometimes it'll be with Will. It can also be, we've got, devs that we're going to be doing this with. We've got Tony from our product team. Basically, these walkthroughs are kind of going to be following our quests as well as the questions and feedback that you give us. So we're going to kind of stay flexible, but basically every week we'll send you a reminder, an invite, and what topics you guys will be addressing for this one. And then we're going to be posting all of these up on our YouTube as well shortly so that everyone can kind of watch through, and we'll start kind of building a library of education materials, which is going to be awesome. And we're excited to start sharing with the community. So, all right, no more questions. Just bought us some time. Anyway, thanks so much all for joining us. I'm going to drop the call off and see you guys all next week.